Today we will be learning about how to use ChatGPT when you're creating your data science projects. And here, this is a data science project that I've already finished on my own. It's an e-commerce customer analysis, and it's a project that I've made during a course that I took up in data camp. So there's several different parts here. First, we're gonna clean the data set. We're gonna identify how much the income is, and then we're also gonna be identifying on which countries have the highest amount of income, and then here we'll be measuring on how much is the profit on different time periods. Example, how much is the income on each day, how much is the income on how much is the income per month, and also how much is the income per hour. So we will be recreating these graphs, but instead we won't be coding as much as possible. We will be doing everything here on ChatGPT. So the dataset that we will be using here is online_retail.csv. I won't be talking about too much about the CSV file and also about the dataset that we'll be using, but instead we'll be focusing on using ChatGPT on analyzing the dataset. So here we'll be first cleaning the dataset, and then these are the rules here. So all the rows all the rows in the stock code column that contains the letter C, they're considered as cancel orders. So you're supposed to remove them. And then those rows where quantity is contains a zero value, it means that they didn't order anything and they don't contribute to the overall income. And then also lastly, you're also supposed to remove those columns, those rows wherein their unit price column was a zero value. And we won't be doing any coding. We'll be doing it here in ChatGPT. So we can turn those into code by just asking ChatGPT here. So I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT a question, or I'm gonna tell ChatGPT to do a code for me. Ano sabihin gusto ko niya? I'm gonna type here, I have a data frame. You can first like give context to ChatGPT in order for the software to better understand the question that you're asking. So I have a data frame. It has a it has a stock code column, and I want all of those columns, and I want all of those rows wherein if that column included the letter C, it will be dropped. So let's see if it contained letter C. Let's see if this will if the output will be useful for our code. So they're not only the ChatGPT gives you the code, but ChatGPT also gives you a context about the code itself. So they even make you their your own data frame. Okay, so the rules here is not that not only that we're supposed to remove those rows wherein their stock code contains the letter C, but we're also supposed to remove rows wherein the quantity is equals to zero or less than zero. Same with unit price. So I can just tell ChatGPT on what to add on the code. There's no need for me to give the software another context, give them the context again. Instead, what I can do, I can just add more details here. So I can just tell ChatGPT, I also want you to remove rows where if the quantity column is less than or equals to zero, as well as remove rows wherein if the unit price column is less than or equals to zero. we already have the code here, and then we can just copy paste it to our code here. But just to make it more, uh, just to give it more attention to the more autonomy for ChatGPT, we're also gonna ask ChatGPT to modify it for us, so we won't have to do it on our own. So the original data frame is orders raw, and I want the new data frame called as orders. So we can just tell ChatGPT to change it to change it by modifying based on what we want, and we can also tell it to. And I also want the code to be just one line. So I'll also tell ChatGPT, can you make it in just one line? So ChatGPT will finally finish its code. So let's just copy the file and then copy the code, and then let's test it out if it actually worked or not. So there aren't any errors. In order for us to check if it actually was able to able to clean the data set, let's print out the shape of the original file, and let's print the shape of the new data frame. So we can see here right above here, it's 541,909 rows by 8 columns. And then the next one, the modified data frame is 523,635 and 8 columns. So it means that it was able to change the data set. However, we aren't exactly 100% sure if it was able to fit to if it was able to do all of our requirements, because there can be chances wherein we might be missing few data variables. However, I won't be diving into those topics and then in those information, because we're just gonna highlight what ChatGPT can do with our code. So anyways, there we can see that it was able to drop those. We can assume that it was able to drop all of those columns that we don't want to be part of the data set, and it finally it cleaned the data frame. So we got a very fresh and clean data frame that we can use for our analysis. So let's also print in the frame. Let's So here I'm printing the frame, and then you can see here. So there aren't any unit prices that's equal to 0 as far as we can tell. And if we were to check here, just for demonstration purpose, I'm gonna show you this one. We're gonna look for a unit price that's equals to 0. For descending, oops. See, you can see here there's unit prices that are equals to 0. But here on our new code, it says here, there aren't any unit prices that's equal to 0. Same with quantity. So if you were to sort this one, the lowest quantity is 1 because they can only buy one item. But on the previous data set, there's even negative ones here. And then there's zeros, there's negatives 1. But here, there aren't any of them. So we aren't taking consideration of those negative variables. So we're able to clean the data set, and then ChatGPT was able to do it on its own, as long as we gave it the necessary information and instructions. So we're done with cleaning the data set. Let's move on to our first analysis, which is to create a column that indicates how much the shop was able to how much the e-commerce platform was able to earn on each purchase, because there are also purchases wherein the customer bought multiple quantities, so you'd had to multiply the quantities as well as the unit prices. So there's no need for me to code. I'm just going to tell ChatGPT here. I'm gonna give context about it because it doesn't know about the unit price and quantity. I'm gonna tell ChatGPT I have in the data frame has a. I'm gonna tell it about the and quantity and unit price data frames. The I mean columns. So the data frame has the columns quantity, which indicates the number of items, and unit price, which is the price per item. I make me a code that will make a new column called income, which is the product of quantity and unit price. So we'll see here if ChatGPT can do it. Okay, so ChatGPT finished the code. So let's copy this one and let's check if it's right or not. So I'm gonna copy paste the code, and I'm also gonna call the data frame the data set that we can check it that we can manually check it. So so it was able to successfully make it a new column here. So there's the income, and we can see. So if we were to multiply, let's say 3 multiplied by 5.95, so that's equals to exactly 17.85. So we can assume that all the rows here are correct. Example here, 6 multiplied by 2.1 is 12.6. So the income is correct. So it was able to make the income column. So now we're then gonna be moving on to making graphs, which is like the best part. And then it seems very impossible for ChatGPT to do the graphs because it's gonna create, it's not only that they have that ChatGPT has to create the graph, but it also has to modify the values, modify it has to modify the data that it will be appealing when presented in a graph. So our first graph here is to identify the top 5 countries based on their overall income. So income is and profit is our priority here. So I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT each of those orders, each row, there is a column. So I'm just gonna put here there's a column for there's a country column which indicates where it was bought. Can you make me a graph that shows the top 5 countries that had the highest income? So this one is a lot more general. It's a lot more general question because I'm literally just asking ChatGPT to make me the graph. I'm not telling it to use the group by function. I'm not telling it to use a bar graph or a line graph. I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT to make me a graph that shows the top 5 countries based on its overall income. So right then and there, we've seen that it will use the group by and sum functions, which is already in my mind. So for these libraries that we're seeing here, I've already imported them. So let's copy the code here. And it's nice that not only that it was able to give a code, but it also put comments there to give more context about the code. So I'm just gonna copy this one and paste it here. And right there, we're able to see that United Kingdom has the largest income, and then the Netherlands, EIRE countries, Germany and France come in from fourth to fifth, from second to fifth. So it's also print out the raw output that we can see the difference of those country income. And there we can see The United Kingdom was the largest one, and then the rest of the other countries and regions. Let's take a look at here. It was able to do everything perfectly. So based on as far as we're here, as far as we've seen, there wasn't a single bug that happened. There wasn't a single error when we're coding, quote unquote coding with ChatGPT. So here it was able to do the group by function, the sum, and it was also able to sort the values, and it's descending because the ascending parameter argument was set to false. It's really great. So it was able to do it perfectly. So let's move on. Instead of the countries, we want to show how much is the profit or income on different days of the week. I can just tell ChatGPT, can you make a graph that shows can you make a graph that shows how much is earned per day? Because we're talking about time here, we need to indicate that there is a there's a column here that indicates that indicates the time of purchase. So before we move on, I think we need to assume that this one, the invoice date, is not set to the proper format. So with that, even ChatGPT can change it to the proper format. So I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT, can you make a graph that shows how much is earned per day? There is a column called invoice date that indicates the time. Just change it to the proper format. So let's see if this one works. So ChatGPT finished generating the code, but based on what we've seen here, it doesn't exactly what we were looking for here specifically is identifying how much they earn on each day of the week, like how much they earn on a Monday, how much they earn on a Tuesday, how much they earn on a Wednesday. However, what it did here is that it shows how much it earned per day throughout the entire period of the data set. So there are times in which you have to be more specific to ChatGPT, and they're just gonna assume something different. And the very cool thing here, just like what I've said before, you just need to tell ChatGPT on what to do. You don't have to tell again all the context and also what you want to happen to the code. So I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT, I want by day, I mean how much is earned on each day of the week. Like how much is earned in in a Monday or in Tuesday. Make that graph for me. So I'm literally just talking to ChatGPT as if it was just a person. I'm not talking to it as if it's a software. It's like I'm just talking to an employee or an actual data scientist. Okay, so this was the code that ChatGPT came up with. So let's just copy paste the entire code without modifying anything. And here we can see that how much it earns, how much they earn on a Friday, on a Monday, on a Sunday, and Thursday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. However, they aren't arranged exactly to the way that we want it to be arranged. So we can just tell ChatGPT there that can you arrange the graph according to the days in a week? It must be uh, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So those are the days of the week. Here is in a very different layout. It's not something that we can understand. It's much easier if it were in the proper order. So Monday, and then Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, so the ChatGPT finally finished the code. And then when you take a look at the previous code and also the new code that it made, it's not very different. What it did, it just added just a few lines of code. It just modified the one that it made before. So this is like a very good example of like ChatGPT being able to understand context because it remembers not only it remembers but it fully understands what the questions that you asked it before. Even in the very first prompt that you put in ChatGPT, they can remember it perfectly and then use it as reference, not just for your current question, but on future questions as well. So let's run the code again. And here, so on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we can see that based on the graph, like they don't really want to buy, they don't really buy a lot of things in Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday may be an error in the data gathering process, but for sure in a Sunday they don't really like to buy a lot, but it's in Tuesday and Thursdays usually. So we already have a code for like the days of the week. So I want to make a graph for months and also the hours of the day. So I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT, you perfectly made a graph. I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT that it's not very important, it's not very relevant, but I'm just gonna put it in the prompt. So I'm just gonna tell perfectly made a graph for income per day in the week. Make me a graph that shows income per month of the year. So ChatGPT finished its code. So I'm just gonna copy this one again and paste it again on the notebook that we have, and let's print the output. So it had the same problem here. It wasn't able to wasn't able to re-index the graph. So just like what we've done before, I'm just gonna tell ChatGPT, uh, can you re-index it chronological form, like January, so forth. ChatGPT finally finished modifying the code, so we're just gonna copy this one again and paste it on the pre-existing code. And let's just run the code. So there we can see on January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. So it's in the proper and right format. And then this data is actually kind of like reliable. We can assume that it's reliable because it's nearing the holidays, and then people really buy a lot of gifts in the holidays, and also in Black Friday on November and during Thanksgiving. So we also are supposed to expect that there's going to be a lot of sales during these months. So ChatGPT perfectly did was able to perfectly make the graph. And then lastly, we're gonna create a graph for the profit on the hours of the day. Now, lastly, make a graph that shows the income on each hour of the day. So ChatGPT finally finished on generating the code. So I'm just gonna once again copy this one here. And fortunately, here on the income per hour of the day, it was in the proper format. So from 6 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. So those were the hours where when people buy. So we can assume here that they usually buy in the morning all the way to the afternoon. So let's take a rundown again of the entire project that we've made. So first, ChatGPT was able to properly clean the data. So it was able to clean the data even when we checked it. When we checked it manually, it was able to do everything perfectly well. And then and then here and then here in the income row, it was able to generate a column that shows how much the income is on each order. So even when we checked it manually, it was able to do it properly. And then for the graphs of ChatGPT and for the graphs, ChatGPT was able to make those graphs. And then not only that the ChatGPT made those graphs perfectly well, we didn't put a lot of input in the prompt. We only asked it to just show this, just show that. So there wasn't we weren't even being technical. We were just asking ChatGPT as if it were a normal person, a normal human being that knew how to do data science. So for this was the output for the countries, the top 5 countries based on income of the orders. This was the income per day of the week on how much is earned during these specific days, during these specific days on the week. And then next is on the months of the year, and then we can assume this was done right in a right way because we also expect a lot of orders and on the online platform happening around November and December. And lastly, here on the hours of the day, people usually order in the morning or afternoon. So that basically wraps up our entire data science project that was almost 100% done just by ChatGPT. Although we were the ones who put in the prompt, we were the ones who identified on what we're supposed to do with the data set. Still, it's such an amazing feat that the ChatGPT and any software that a software like ChatGPT can do amazing things like this. And then the best part here is, uh, as far as I can tell, we didn't encounter a single bug, a single error. So that is what ChatGPT can do for data science. Thank you, everyone.